Hey everyone, welcome back to TOFR Drives, where today we're going to show you what it's like to daily drive my mom's car. And I also thought it would give me a good chance to talk about why I sometimes recommend people go for certified pre-owned over brand new, especially when it comes to cars like this, the BMW X3. This particular car is a 2020 X3 xDrive30i that my mom bought 2 years ago in 2022 for just under 40 grand. So about 20% off of its original MSRP. And it only had about 23,000 miles on it when she bought it, and it has been a fantastic car. This is her second certified pre-owned BMW, her first one being a 2016 328i xDrive, but it came time for her to get something that sits a little bit higher up and that has a better lumbar adjustment in the driver's seat. So this is what we landed on, this Phytonic blue over beige X3 xDrive30i. It's a pretty basic spec. It doesn't have a ton of crazy options, but it's a good, simple daily driver for someone that doesn't want to spend 60 to 65 grand on a brand new X3. And the reason I often recommend people consider CPO is that you do get an extension of the car's factory warranty. So this BMW X3 comes with a year added on to the factory 4-year warranty, so 5 years, and they let you go for as many miles as you want. 5-year unlimited mile CPO warranty. So this thing will be covered for the next year or so, and she can drive it as far as she wants. And she has that peace of mind knowing that this thing is covered. Not to mention, you can have yourself a BMW X3 for the same price as like a brand new Toyota RAV4 or a Honda CR-V or something. And I know in the comments you're going to say that those are still the proper choice because they are more reliable in the long run. And yes, I do agree with you to an extent, but sometimes people have to live a little bit. Sometimes you want to have something like this, and CPO allows you to indulge in that just a bit. So let's talk about what we have here in front of us. Like I said, Phytonic blue with a beige interior. Now, this is the 30i, which means this has, in some countries, the B48. I believe this one has the B46, which was, most of the US cars had that. It's the SULEV version, but still a 2-liter turbocharged 4-cylinder engine. In this car, it makes 248 horsepower, 258 pound-feet of torque. It's all-wheel drive, and it has the glorious ZF 8-speed automatic transmission. So quite a nice recipe. My mom's been averaging around like 27 or 28 mpg combined. My parents take this car on road trips quite often, and they usually get upwards of 30 mpg. My dad was just telling me earlier, like 32, 33 mpg. So it's quite efficient. It looks the part. I mean, after 4 years, all of the materials inside still seem just fine. They put new tires on it before they sold it to her, and I honestly think this G01 version of the X3, the pre-facelift before it had the weird looking taillights and stuff, is kind of the best looking one. And especially now that I have seen the new one that's coming out, these are seeming quite attractive. The 2016 328i that my mom had before this car never had any mechanical issues. And in fact, the only thing that my parents ever complained about on that car is that there was no digital readout on the speedo. Of course, that old F30 still had the analog gauges. And sometimes you just like to see your speed nice, large, in front and center. And I always thought that you would have needed some large BMW, sort of like expensive dealership scanner to be able to code that in. And back then that may have been the case, but not today. And that leads us into the first ever sponsor of a TOFR Drives video. Everybody thank Carly for sponsoring today's video. Carly is a small pocket-sized OBD2 Bluetooth scanner that of course can read fault codes on your car, but also can code different functions into BMW, Audi, and Volkswagen vehicles. Not all of them, select vehicles, but this one is one of them that you can do. I want to say it's like BMW E90 generation and up. So pretty much anything that has the capability to be coded can be coded here from this Carly scanner. And I know that I touched earlier on how CPO cars, you know, their warranties, everything like that. But of course, if you hang on to these cars for years after the warranty, it is nice to have a little bit of peace of mind to have a scanner that you can just easily keep in the car. And if your BMW, God forbid, throws a check engine light or something like that, you're able to quickly see what's up with it. So let's jump in. We'll show you how this thing works. We'll show you the rest of the interior, and then we'll jump on the road and we'll go for a drive in this X3. To connect the Carly, it's as simple as jumping into the car, starting the engine, and then you plug this thing into the OBD port. You then simply open your Carly app and click connect, and the scanner will do its thing and pair with your car. At this point, we can go through, we can scan the car and see if there are any stored fault codes in the system. As you can see right now, we have nothing showing on here, but the cool thing about Carly is you can go back in and see every single fault code that this car has ever had in its entire lifetime. So we can click on diagnostics and we can see that there are 80 stored codes in this X3, all of which you can go through and you can read and you can see what this car has seen in its past, I suppose. Not only can you see what is wrong with the car, you can see when it occurred. This battery below upper startability limit happened at 30,875 miles. So that was during my mom's ownership. And I imagine that the battery this was probably during winter, it probably got very cold and it triggered some sort of code internally. But it saves you the step of having to go on the internet and search what the codes mean, because Carly's smart mechanic spells it all out for you and lets you know what your car is trying to tell you. But I gotta say, my favorite part about Carly is the coding feature. And if you have a compatible car, this can be a ton of fun. The coolest thing about this is that it backs up your original software. So if I code something into this car and I decide that I don't like it, from the press of one button, I can set this thing back to its factory setting and go on with my day. As you can see here, there are 11 different computers in this car that we can code. The one that I want to show you is the dashboard, the instrument cluster, and the head-up display. So obviously we know that BMW makes a ton of different vehicles, from M cars to Alpinas to just these kind of run-of-the-mill vehicles. The cool thing about this is you can make your cluster appear slightly different, like an Alpina or an M car. So we'll go ahead and do that now, and we'll show you what that looks like. So I can click Alpina tuning here, and I can code this into the car. Whoa! Okay, we now have an Alpina. Ooh, maybe I'll leave that. That's really pretty. I think that she will actually quite enjoy that. So as you can see there, a quite useful little scanner with a fun twist to be able to change little pieces of your car. So thanks again to Carly for sponsoring today's video. You all can click the link in my description, or you can use my code TOPHERDRIVES for 15% off your own Carly. Oh, it says Alpina when you shut it off. Oh my goodness. Oh boy, we'll see if she notices, I suppose. Very quickly, before we jump out on the road and show you what it's like to drive this 4-year-old 38,000 mile X3, let's poke around the interior just a bit and show you some of the practicality aspects of this thing. Obviously, at the end of the day, this is still a crossover. It is still quite practical, and you can see in the back we have to stop and we have to ship a package. But I want to show you this rear cargo area. You can see that that somehow broke. I think Mom put a gallon of milk in there or something and it stretched it out, and now it's just completely detached. So if anybody knows where to get this piece, I think it probably has to be this entire part somewhere. Hit me up, because I do need to put a new one of those here in the car. But anyways, the storage back here is quite nice. We've got a little bit more under the rear floor, which I always like to see. BMW always does a really good job with that. You can put some groceries under there as opposed to in there, so you don't break your little storage net. But lots of storage solutions back here. We also have some bag hangers, which commenters have pointed out to me in the past, and it has been my favorite feature that I have discovered so far in some of these BMW SUVs. You've got a little outlet right there. We have a privacy shade that is beige to match the rest of the interior. That is quite nice to see. And we also have switches right here to fold our back seats down, which I much prefer to a power fold. It's just so much easier and faster to do so. So even more extended space. Obviously, this isn't a fully flat load surface, but you do have a lot of room here in the back of the X3. With that, let's go ahead and jump in the back and show you room back here. It's so funny because, like, I've always been so in touch with cars that my parents have owned, but now that I am an adult, I don't really see them as much. So I've only really sat in this back seat probably 3 or 4 times going out to dinners or things like that with my parents. So I guess I can sort of properly evaluate this now. Obviously, I've sat in other X3s before, but here, sat behind myself at 5'11", I have plenty of room. This is definitely an upgrade over the F30 328i that she was driving before. Plenty of headroom, even with this very nice pano roof back here. You've got enough amenities. We actually don't have heated rear seats in this car, which was a bit of a downgrade from the 328i, which did have them. But we do have some cup holders, and honestly, I would trade the heated rear seats for just being able to exist more comfortably back here. What is nice is we do have a climate control panel, and we do have some central mounted vents to make yourself nice and cozy. Overall materials on the inside of this X3 are quite nice, and I really do genuinely think this is a sweet spot for BMW, and that this car is a very nice choice for you right now as you're still able to get them CPO'd. This car has sport seats, which means you get a crumb collector, which this is as raw and real as you can get for the term crumb collector. That is gross. We need to clean that out when I get home. But it's a hidden spot that definitely is often overlooked. Otherwise, really nice matte wood. We don't have leather stitched uppers on the door panel or the top of the dash or anything like that. As I said earlier, this isn't a super high spec car, but honestly, overall, the material on the steering wheel is quite nice. We have a ton of physical controls still here in this X3. So let's go ahead and fire it up and jump out onto the road. Also, I gotta say, I am such a huge fan of that BMW chime. I think that was peak chime for them, because now it's just kind of like womp, 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 which is just doesn't have as much character. I think the bling and then this one were their best ones ever, but that's just my opinion. We still have the iDrive controller down here, physical knob to go through this infotainment screen, which is still a touchscreen and does have wireless Apple CarPlay. So that is excellent to see here on this infotainment screen. We'll do a bit of a sound system test once we're on the road later with this bass sound system here in this X3. No Harman Kardon on this, but that's nice because I like to sometimes show you guys systems that aren't often shown in other reviews. We have a volume knob, we have more of this nice matte wood, some really nicely placed vents here, and a physical climate control panel in here as well. This kind of old school BMW shifter, which I do still really like. Physical buttons for our drive modes for Sport, Comfort, and Eco Pro. You can see in Sport, we get those green gauges. Oh man, that's so cool with this Alpina gauge cluster. Otherwise though, little cubby to hide your phone there, some cup holders, but I mean, everything is just so straightforward and easy in this X3. And I honestly, really, I know I've said it already, but I think this is peak X3 for sure. Little storage cubby by your left knee. You can put your registration, insurance, whatever, some sort of things in that. Things that won't rattle, because I think that would kind of drive you nuts, but little extra storage thing for you there. Physical switch for our headlight controls. We can go through here, and you know, obviously these things are the same no matter what your gauge cluster looks like, but you can see your trip computer, you can see your boost gauge, you can leave it at nothing there. I've got my navigation set in the middle. You can see that map moving with the rest of the car, and I mean, that's kind of just about it here. We are going to turn the vent up just slightly so we don't have any overheating happening with our GoPro. But why don't we go ahead and jump on the road with this X3, and we'll show you guys what it's like to live with my mom's car. Heated steering wheel, front and center button there. Kind of cool to see. Throw this thing into reverse. Now, we don't have a 360 camera on this car, but we do have a quite clear reverse camera with some helping lines there to show you where you are going. Bump this down into drive. Kind of one of the last iterations of this style of shifter from BMW. This is so funny, but I have honestly only driven this car like 2 or 3 times, so you guys will be getting some of my raw first impressions here on a 38,000 mile 4-year-old X3. Obviously, we know that this 2-liter turbocharged 4-cylinder, whether it's a B48 or a B46, it is an absolute masterpiece, and I was so excited to learn that the G01 was getting that when it came out. Fantastic powertrain and fantastically efficient. Back in my day at Daily Motor, obviously we did a lot of fuel economy testing, and the B48, the B58, they were all super efficient. So a rendition of this engine is still used in the newer 2-liter turbo 4-cylinder BMWs, and that goes to show that it's been good for them. You can hear my box flying around back there. Really smooth inputs from this car. Throttle response, transmission tuning, everything is just so silky. And really still drives like a new BMW. I mean, all of the newer cars that I drive, do still drive like this. Not that that should be too surprising, as this thing is only 4 years old. But it still feels properly dialed. And I wasn't lying about adjustment to this seat. I mean, I've got a ton of lumbar adjustment, even though this is a so-called sport seat. It does feel quite supportive. I'm still having to get my position dialed in a bit here. But this kind of text material on here is quite supportive and soft as well. And you really just don't even hear this 4-cylinder. It's so quiet, it's so just in the background. And I think that's important for a car like this, for somebody that just really has no interest in taking it to the limit. You know, you want to just have something that gets the job done with quietness and torque. And that is exactly what this car does. Does anyone else hate when things are sliding around in the back of the car? I'm so excited to dump this thing out. Okay, and let's do that now. We're pulling up to my little shipping location here. We'll park this thing in a parking lot, show you spacing, and I'm actually curious to see what size these tires are, because whenever I drive a new X3, it always has like 21-inch wheels on it, and the ride is always compromised for that. But with this kind of like normal spec X3 that you would actually buy on the lot with smaller wheels, it feels quite nice. And we'll shut it off. I know we have Pirellis on this. Pirelli Cinturato, and they are a 245/50/19. Okay, so we have a 19-inch wheel on this car, a 50 sidewall. That is the most important part. These tires were replaced in 2022. They do still feel quite nice. We'll have to see their volume level out on the highway. But as far as sizing goes, I mean, the X3 is an SUV, but it's just a really nice size for a mom. And I suppose that, you know, it fits the bill. It makes sense. In the spot nicely here, blends in with pretty much every other car in the parking lot. So let's grab our box here out of the back, get rid of the thing that's sliding around, and then we'll jump back on the road. And upon walking back up to the car, I just realized this thing has rear proxy key. This must have been before the days when BMW was blaming the chip shortage for putting, or the lack of rear proxy key on the car, I suppose. But obviously, front doors have proxy key as well. You can just go ahead and jump in with the key in your pocket. I'm not going to get over that telling me Alpina every time I get in here. Pretty light steering overall and a decent turning circle there. Good maneuverability in parking lots. This is one of the last BMWs to feature the halos or the angel eyes, whatever they call them. The really nice circular DRLs. Started back around the early E90 generation. Steering does weight up a bit when you are up to speed. Overall, a pretty nice feel. Obviously, you know, these non-M BMWs, their main goal isn't steering feel, but this car is really a pleasure to drive around casually. Getting merged onto the highway here. Let's go ahead and try sport mode. So it looks like that'll default us into Sport Plus. Okay, yeah, whatever, that's fine. We also have a manual mode with this. We can bump our stick over and use our paddle shifters, or we can just leave it in sport. really sharp gear changes from this 8-speed automatic. I love these old Eco Pro displays that show you your current MPG, or your best MPG rather, and you kind of have to work to try and beat it and do better. It's almost like a little game. Pretty standard cruise control on this car, nothing special. We do have a lane departure warning, but we don't have adaptive cruise or anything like that on this particular X3. Blind spot warning on our mirrors. But like I've said a million times, guys, just a nice, simple, entry-level luxury experience here in this car. Give you a second to observe NVH as we make our passes. We have a pretty minimal amount of wind or road noise. So how about comfiness? Well, just sitting in this car, we talked about the seat a bit earlier, elbow comfiness is excellent. This is one of the squishiest center console lids I have felt in a long time, so that feels quite nice. And one of the best things about this position as well are the ergonomics of where you're able to place your hands as you kind of just go down the highway. You're able to set yourself up quite nicely. You can sit back, rest your arms, and just be very cozy here in this X3. Cool, well, as we continue our little journey on the highway, why don't we do a test on this bass sound system in this 2020 X3.
I don't know why you got me thinking so long. Yeah. Girl, you got me restless. I got to know, don't keep me waiting. Said I love in motion, let's go. I can be yours. Good from here. So let's feel what we wanna feel.
In no way a bad sound system. I mean, when I heard this thing for the first time years ago, whenever we got this car, I was honestly pretty impressed, and it's not that far below the Harman Kardon that's offered in these cars. This was before the Harman Kardons got really good with the modern era of BMW, so I don't see any problems with this bass system. I know my parents enjoy it quite a bit. They're not really audiophiles, but they do appreciate a good 80s song here and there, and this bass system definitely gets the job done. So really no complaints. I mean, obviously we don't have the incredible depth that we get from a Bowers & Wilkins optional system on a BMW or something like that, but it really genuinely does sound okay. I think the biggest takeaway so far is just simply the quietness of this thing. Doing the job that I do, making these videos for you guys, receiving press vehicles from the manufacturers, I don't often get to test cars that are closer to the base model level. One that stands out is I drove a base model Tiguan a few months back, and that really stood out, and people appreciated driving a base model car. So I kind of feel the same way driving this X3 that isn't a total base model. Of course, it's xDrive, it has a few options, cold weather pack, things like that. But it's nice to drive one that isn't an M40i that's like $75,000 with every option. So it's cool to see that you can still get yourself into an X3 for a decently affordable price. I mean, a car like this now is probably worth, I mean, just over $30,000, which is what you're paying for like a RAV4 or a CR-V or a Kia Sportage that's a year or two old. So if you're willing to sacrifice a couple more years of age with a car that technologically is going to have most of the same stuff, I mean, shoot, for 2020 having wireless CarPlay, ride quality is fantastic. This definitely has some soft damping, but that 50-section sidewall, man, it makes all the difference, seriously. Really progressive feel through that brake pedal. This is just a very easy car to live with. It's easy, it's quiet, it's affordable. And plenty of mid-range torque to get you up to speed. You really don't have to rev this thing out. I really do love this engine. I love this engine, I love this transmission. Nice packaging with this car. And you can hear over these bumps, there's really nothing rattling. I guess that was one thing. The old 328i, the F30, was absolutely plagued with interior rattles. This car is a step up. It's a bit of a step up in generation across BMW's entire line, going from the F body cars to the G body cars. But it's so quiet. It's whisper quiet. If anything, I can just hear like the 16 pairs of sunglasses that are in the glove box rattling around, but there are no interior pieces in here that are making any noise. Of course, we have a head-up display on this car. It's my mother's favorite feature on the entire thing. If you asked her, what's your favorite part about your X3, she will tell you every single time the head-up display. BMWs in the past have kind of been known to age poorly mechanically, especially the E body cars, even some of the F generation, you know, E90, the F30, those cars, they haven't aged super well mechanically. There are some issues with those motors, with those interiors kind of falling apart and things like that, but I really think that this era is a good one. They stepped up their quality. Everything in here just really just feels so nice. I mean, I know I've said it a million times, but I think that that's really what brings this home, what makes it make so much sense. I think I am regretting pulling in here right now, but it is what it is.
Welcome.
SUVs like this, thank you, Tom. SUVs like this are always at such a good height level to grab tickets at a parking garage. Oh goodness, I may be spending more time than I wanted to spend here in this parking garage. If I can even maneuver myself past these people. How long is the line? That's the question. Really quick steering, you guys can see that. Quick 1-2 turn there and you are at full lock. That's what's nice about some of these smaller SUVs that are still luxury brands. Obviously, you know, you can step up to an X5 or an X7 and spend $100,000, but you still get a bit of that luxury feel here with the X3. From the steering to just some of the things you touch in here, the steering wheel, the door handles, the seats. It's pretty close to what you get in an older sibling, a larger sibling of the X3. All right, guys, well, I guess that's just about gonna wrap it up for us today on my mom's 2020 X3 xDrive30i. I feel as though I've summed things up pretty well, but I really just wanted to come on here and let you guys know that you shouldn't be afraid to get a BMW that's a couple of years old. I mean, you have the peace of mind from the warranty and things like that, and just sometimes it's cool to drive cars that you actually know the owners of. You can kind of take their testimonies, and my parents adore this car. They absolutely love it. I mean, they've put 15,000 miles on it over the past 2 years. They're both retired, so they don't drive as much as they used to, but this car is just perfect for that. Being able to go on long trips and things, you know, they've taken it up to like the UP, they've taken it to northern Michigan, they've taken it, God, they've probably taken it places that I don't even know about. I think they've taken it like down to Indianapolis and things like that. So a lot of the miles on this car are like from long trips, and they love it. They love sitting in it. It's really comfortable for long distances. It's efficient, over 30 mpg. It can merge safely. It's got plenty of torque. It's quiet. Interior has held up well. And it's got blue ambient lighting, or any color ambient lighting that you would like. So with that, let's go ahead and park this X3. We'll give you one last look at it. And that'll be it for us today. There's a new X1 in orange. Shoot, I mean, even compared to that new X1, this feels like a way nicer vehicle for what would probably be similarly priced for you to get like a 2 or 3 year old X3 versus a brand new X1. 2 or 3 year old X3 all the way, every day of the week, I would recommend. Let's park over here. I usually don't park over here, but let's... Man, I really do like the steering on this car for maneuverability. I am on the line slightly, but you know what? I don't care. There's no one else up here. Apply the parking brake, and we'll shut her down. Not to mention also, this era of iDrive, the iDrive 7, works so nicely. I mean, you don't have the big continuous cluster, the big screen that some people really like with iDrive 8. I think this is peak iDrive. And the fact that it still has wireless CarPlay makes it modern enough for me. I think it's fantastic. I'm actually realizing I never showed you guys under the hood, so let's do that now. I don't know that anyone in my family has ever opened the hood on this, so this will be a surprise for us to see. Oh wow, it is actually quite clean under here. That's good. Well, there is your twin power turbo 2-liter 4-cylinder. We've got some chassis bracing here, but I mean, nothing really to see. Usually I show it in the walk around, but today's video was a little bit different. 0W20 oil for this X3. With today's video having a slightly different flow, I was thrown off a bit in the beginning. So there we go. You guys have now seen that. But one last look at the X3, and that will wrap it up for us today. If I left anything out, please do ask me in the comments any questions you have about this, ownership of this for the past couple of years, any sort of recommendations for specs on X3s. I helped my mom look for X3s, but she actually ended up finding this one herself and went and bought it without me. She went and did the whole thing. Well, her and my dad went and did it together, but I showed up at their house one day and, well, there was this new X3. So anyways, cool. Well, that's going to wrap it up for us today. Again, thank you guys all so much for watching, and we will see you in the next one. Take care.